the purpose of this is really to set the tone and to get an idea for the scope of what surf parks can do from an industry perspective, from a surf industry perspective. Really what potential unlocks there are for the surf industry. So this is going to take the form of a little bit of a question and answer. I've got a couple of questions for him to kind of explain from his perspective, both from a Van's perspective and as president of the Surf Industry Manufacturers Association, what the size and scope of this could mean for the surf industry. And then if there are any questions from the floor after that, I'd be really happy to take your questions as well. So to get into it, Doug, from your position as VP General Manager of the Americans Advance and also as the President of SEMA, are surf parks on your radar at that level? Is this something that you guys are thinking about in boardrooms and planning meetings and future casting?
Yeah, they're on everybody's radar. I mean, look around, look at the audience. I'd say a couple years ago, this meeting would not have been possible. So it's clearly that, you know, the tipping point, whatever you want to call it, as mentioned before, timing is ideal. It's on everybody's radar. So I'll speak on both sides of it. From SEMA side, you know, we just announced that we've partnered with the ISA to help make surfing an Olympic sport. And Fernando Aguirre, a longtime contributor to SEMA, is leading that effort, obviously. Every board meeting, our monthly board meetings, Fernando's keeping us appraised of his trajectory. And his trajectory is pretty positive. For those of you who don't know Fernando, he's a one-man wrecking crew. This guy's a force to be reckoned with. And we have full belief, the industry, the manufacturers have full belief in Fernando's ability to get us over the hump and to make surfing an Olympic sport. The recent announcement of the new president was very well accepted. This guy, Thomas Bach, Fernando speaks very highly of him, speaks of him as a fan of surfing. So we're really confident that Fernando and the ISA team are going to be able to make surfing an Olympic sport. And that's pretty exciting. And we are, as SEMA, are fully invested in supporting to make that possible. We think that's a good thing for the sport as a whole. It's a good thing for our industry, and obviously it's good for those of you in the room who venture to create man-made waves. From Van's perspective, it's also very much on our radar. Those of you who are familiar with our brand know that our heritage comes from skateboarding. And it was not that long ago when we were building our own private skate parks all over the country because there were no places for kids to skate. And then through it, basically an insurance ruling, created an opportunity for municipalities to start making skateboard parks. And you guys know, those of you, I'm sure, who have done your homework know the rest of the story. It's the democratization of skateboarding helped to fuel the sport. The one thing I would say about skate parks that we've learned over time is that to just put up a park is not enough. They have to be good parks. So if you look at it, for example, what the Tony Hawk Foundation does, I think that's a really good example. The foundation is set up to match funds to ensure that the quality of the skateboard parks is a fundamental thought as all these cities think about building skate parks. And I think that that we as the industry would challenge the same thing to those of you thinking about surf. It's the quality of the wave for sure. Scott talked about 6 feet and perfect, rights and lefts. Obviously, you guys are deep in the technology. But for me, it's more about supporting the entire culture and making sure that wherever we represent surfing, that we represent surfing as a whole. That we're not just thinking about what we drag through the water to make a wave functional, but it's about the opportunity to build surfing as an entity, as a bigger culture everywhere that we take it. And that's the Van's point of view, and we are excited about it. And I've already verbally committed to several different people who have pitched me their wave park concepts that as soon as they receive the funding and get the building permits, that we will be there to help support. I think it's going to be an incredible unlock for surfing. There's no words to say what unlocking the geographic limitations can mean for the future of surfing. Sorry, very long answer to your question.
That's absolutely fine. Have you ridden one, Dan?
In my mind, a million times. Without any favoritism at all, the Wave Garden video just unlocked. It harkened back to my Peachy Folder days and drawing the perfect wave. To me, that's that kind of like emotional connection I got when I saw that video go up on YouTube. I had heard the rumblings of things happening in the Basque Country when I saw that video. And so yeah, in my mind a million times. And I surfed it just like Sean Thompson would. Sorry, Sean. Drag the quality of the surfing down considerably.
How about the surfers that Vans is responsible for supporting, the Gauskas brothers and so on? Do you see surf parks as an important part, or even a part, of their progression and for the progression of athletes in general?
Undoubtedly. And a lot of my athletes, when you ask me, have I surfed it, that's really an irrelevant question whether I have or not. I really depend on our surfers to communicate what the opportunity is, and a lot of them have surfed in various ways. The G-Bros, as you mentioned, they were in Dubai last summer surfing that, and we get their unfiltered feedback about what works, about what doesn't work, the quality of the wave, the potential. To a man, including Layla, our woman, they see the potential, they see the power of what it could mean. They see the power of taking surfing everywhere in the world. They see the ability, Scott talked about, really quickly, it touched on the heat thing. One thing that we talk a lot about in the ASP level is about live television. Okay. So you think about that, it has to be planned. Live television in sports works when you know when the game stops and when it starts and who's surfing when, right? And that's the big challenge that surfing has today. So you think about that unlock, and it goes on and on and on. We all see a massive amount of potential.
I wonder if you could just explore in a little more detail. You mentioned before the unlock for new markets. What does that mean in terms of additional distribution channels for members of the Surf Industry Manufacturers Association? And the idea of removing the geographical barriers to surfing across the world. What kind of scale and scope does that have you guys imagine from the industry perspective?
Yeah, the answer to that question for me lies in the impact at retail. So as those of you who follow our industry know, we've seen a massive amount of contraction in the past, let's say 5 or 6 years. I'm going to say that we've lost 50% of the independent wholesale doors worldwide to the contraction in surfing. And that's the independent wholesale doors. Those have been replaced with a lot of owned retail mall chains and such. So I think there's a huge opportunity for the rebirth of independent wholesale board sports. When I talk about representing the full culture of surfing and not just the technology of manufacturing a wave, I think there's a big opportunity there, because independent wholesale, when it's done correctly, that does represent a cultural destination for our sport. A good board sport shop says a ton about the history of surfing and the culture of surfing. I was really happy to see Pete and Dave from San Diego here. There's obviously a lot of retailers who are interested in what this could mean for them, and rightly so. I was thinking about it this morning as I was driving up here. It's a little bit like when Clark Foam closed their doors. That opened the spirit of innovation in surfboard design and construction in a massive way. At first, everybody cried the loss, but then very quickly that was replaced with a new level of thinking about what surfboards can be. And I think you see the same evolution happening right now at retail in our industry, where the challenge that we faced in the past, let's say 5, 6 years, is now being replaced, by people who have come out on the other side and are thinking about how to build again, how to innovate, how to do things differently this time, and really evolve retail. And I think you're seeing the same thing on the manufacturer side. They know that doing the same thing over and over again is foolish. And I think that some of the companies who have really been challenged financially are living that every day. So we are being challenged to progress, to innovate, to evolve at a much more rapid pace than we have before to meet the needs of consumers. I was just in Paris a couple weeks ago, and you see surf culture everywhere. You walk into a little store right off a main high street shopping area, and there's surfboards there. Are there any waves around? Hell no. But surf culture is pervasive. So the financial opportunity from the manufacturer's perspective and from the retailer's perspective is clearly laid out for us. And I think that you guys being the guys who actually are going to manufacture the parks and own the technology behind the waves, the partnership opportunities will be considerable. And your challenge won't be to find them, it'll be to evaluate them and carefully and thoughtfully select the best partners, because I guarantee you the manufacturers will be there. And from the polling I've done among retailers, I think they're very excited about this opportunity as well.
Now, you mentioned that surf culture is pervasive even where there isn't much surf around. Do you think that whole new geographic regions of aspirational surfers will actually get the chance to surf if surf parks are built away from the coast? How important is that to SEMA's members and retailers and manufacturers? Does it matter that there will be people who can actually get a taste of surfing, or is the culture pervasive enough that that doesn't matter so much?
Oh, it matters incredibly. Participation is what fuels the lifestyle opportunity. So when I was talking about, our industry to date has been primarily an apparel industry. That's true. For every kid who buys a pair of board shorts as a functional device to go surf, you guys know that there are thousands who wear them in the pools, in the lakes. It's obvious, right? You guys have all seen what's happened with SUP, right? Okay. Great concept, harkens back to the birth of surfing in the Hawaiian tradition, but look at it now. You go to the lake house in Wisconsin, what do you see? Right next to the boat and the wake, you see 4 SUPs. That's a positive thing. So that's just a taste of what the unlock could potentially be everywhere in the world. And like I say, I travel a lot. I travel about 150,000 air miles a year for our business, and I'm keenly aware of what the concept of surfing means to people. So we're going to get people surfing in the parks that haven't had an opportunity to surf a real Mother Nature-made wave, and we're going to get people who are more interested in the culture of surfing around it. And they're both valuable and they're both meaningful in the long term to our business.
Okay. We've got time for a couple of questions from the floor. If anyone would like to ask a question.
No coffee?
Oh, I'll ask one. How's it going, Doug? Justin Ninja. Years ago, I was involved with the Ranjan Surf Park, and one real interesting thing I learned in that project is bringing this industry to market. You kind of got 2 choices. You can kind of cater to the masses, and in the theme park world, we say, do it for the kids. But then on the other side of the coin, we want to bring it to the Olympics and make these extreme waves. So, obviously the answer is do both. But from a technical standpoint, it's not that easy. So what do you see? Eventually it'll be the both, but how do we grow it organically and properly to bring it to the market?
Yeah, they're not mutually exclusive concepts, as you mentioned. They need to work hand in hand. I'm going to go back to the Waveguard video again. You see some of the ASP guys ripping, and then you see the little Broms who are getting pushed in on the foam tops. And those peacefully coexist, I think, in a very, very powerful way. I would say that involvement at the Olympic level, look at snowboarding as a pretty powerful example there, and what a half pipe has meant to snowboarding in places that are vertically challenged, right? Places where they're hills, not mountains. That's been a very powerful thing. I think you set the table at the top, and I think an ASP partnership in what you guys are developing is a critical part of it, and I think Paul Speaker and his team are probably very, very open to that. But I think you pull up from the bottom as well, and you take what AYSO has built as, I think, an interesting foundational element, and build through the surf parks, starting with the youngest kids there as well. There's a great model too. So I think if you're aspiring from the top and pushing up from the bottom at the same time, then when you meet in the middle, I think we'll see a lot of success.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. We've got to shimmy off the stage, but thanks so much for Doug for coming along today. And we'll be around in a break if someone's got some more questions for you. Excellent. We thank Doug.
Yeah, I look forward to it.